Welcome to my story time by mybooksummary.com. Get ready for quick wisdom of countless stories and explore. Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Imagine being 13 years old, full of dreams and thoughts too big for your small world. And then suddenly, that world shrinks even further, down to a cramped, hidden annex where the only thing keeping you sane is a diary. This was Anne Frank's reality, and was just a regular girl, curious, intelligent, sometimes rebellious, and full of thoughts about life, love, and growing up. But she lived during one of the darkest times in history, World War II. She and her family were Jewish, and in Nazi-occupied Holland, that meant one thing: they were no longer safe. When her older sister Margot received a notice to report to a Nazi labor camp, her father, Otto Frank, knew they had to disappear. And so, the Frank family went into hiding. They moved into a secret annex, a hidden set of rooms behind a bookcase in Otto Frank's office building. Along with them were another Jewish family, the Van Dons, and later, a dentist named Mr. Dussel. For 2 years, they lived in that cramped space, never stepping outside, always whispering, always afraid. But Anne, with her heart full of words and her mind bursting with thoughts, had her diary, her one true friend in the silence of their hidden world. The girl behind the diary. Anne's diary wasn't just a journal. It was a confidant, a lifeline, and a place where she could be completely herself. She named it Kitty and wrote to it as if it were a person, pouring out her deepest feelings, about her fears, her family, and even the small joys she found in the dreary days of hiding. She wrote about her strained relationship with her mother, whom she found distant and hard to connect with. She wrote about her father, whom she adored, and her sister, whom she admired but also envied. She described the annoying habits of Mr. Dussel, the bickering between the Van Dons, and the endless tension of being trapped with the same people day after day. But she also wrote about hope. Despite the war, despite the fear, she still dreamed of a future where she would be free, where she would become a writer, where she would make something of herself, and had a spirit that refused to be crushed. She found ways to laugh, to dream, to love, even in the midst of darkness. She developed a crush on Peter Van Don, the quiet, awkward teenage boy also hiding in the annex. Their relationship started as shy glances and awkward conversations, but grew into something more. A first love in the most unlikely of places. Life in the secret annex. Life in the annex was a strange mix of routine and terror. Every morning, they had to wake up early and stay completely silent. No footsteps, no running water, no whispering, because the workers in the office below might hear them. Afternoons were spent reading, writing, or helping with chores. They relied on a small group of trusted friends, Otto Frank's former employees, who risked their own lives to bring them food, supplies, and news from the outside world. Sometimes they found comfort in small pleasures, a good book, a stolen glimpse of the sky through the attic window, or a rare treat like butter on bread. But there was also constant fear. Every sound from outside made them jump. Every knock on the door could be the Gestapo coming to take them away. And wrote about the food shortages, the arguments over the tiniest things, and the fear that gnawed at them every time they heard footsteps in the building. But she also wrote about the human side of it all, the way people adapt, the way hope survives, even in the bleakest places. A teenage girl in extraordinary circumstances. What makes Anne's diary so powerful is that she wasn't just writing about war and survival. She was writing about being a teenage girl, about trying to understand herself and the world around her. She wrote about feeling misunderstood, about her desire to be seen as more than just a child. She longed to make a difference, to be remembered, to live a life that mattered. She questioned everything, her faith, her identity, her own emotions. One day, she would feel hopeful, believing that good would triumph in the end. The next, she would sink into despair, feeling like the world was closing in on her. She found joy in the simplest things, watching the chestnut tree outside their window, writing stories, dreaming of a future where she could be free. And yet, as time passed, the weight of hiding, of war, of the constant uncertainty took its toll. The entries became more reflective, more urgent. She began to see the bigger picture, not just her own struggles, but the suffering of millions, the insanity of war, the cruelty of the world. The final entry and the heartbreaking end. Then suddenly the diary stops. Anne's last entry was written on August 1st, 1944. Just 3 days later, the annex was raided by the Gestapo. Someone, to this day no one knows who, had betrayed them. Anne and her family were arrested, torn from the safety of the annex, and sent to concentration camps. She was first taken to Auschwitz and later to Bergen-Belsen, where she died of typhus in March 1945, just weeks before the camp was liberated. Otto Frank, Anne's father, was the only survivor. After the war, when he returned to Amsterdam, he was given Anne's diary by Miep Gies, one of the friends who had helped hide them. He read her words, his daughter's voice preserved in ink, and knew he had to share it with the world. Why Anne's diary still matters today, and never lived to see the freedom she dreamed of. She never became the writer she longed to be, but in a way she did. Her words have been read by millions, her story has been told in countless languages, and her diary remains one of the most powerful testaments to the human spirit in the face of unimaginable horror. What makes The Diary of a Young Girl so extraordinary isn't just that it's a first-hand account of the Holocaust. It's that it's so personal, so intimate, so real. And wasn't a historical figure when she wrote it. She was just a girl, living in a terrifying time, trying to make sense of the world around her. And in doing so, she gave us all a window into a moment in history that must never be forgotten. Her story isn't just about war. It's about hope, resilience, the power of words, and the unbreakable human spirit. And perhaps the most heartbreaking part? And believe that deep down, people were still good at heart. And maybe, just maybe, her diary continues to remind us of the world she hoped for, a world where kindness, tolerance, and humanity triumph over hate. And Frank's voice was silenced too soon, but through her words, she will never be forgotten. Stay tuned for more enlightening content. Head over to www.mybooksummary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share the magic with friends, and let's grow together through the power of books and interesting stories.